The main reference document for drone rules in Ireland is called the Statutory Instrument. Now this document is law, and it's important that we remember what it's called. It replaces an old statutory instrument that was written back in 2000 and was designed for model aircraft and rockets, the small type. The full name of the document is Statutory Instrument number 563 of 2015, Irish Aviation Authority Small Unmanned Aircraft Drones and Rockets Order 2015. To put the statutory instrument in context, this is secondary legislation which allows the Irish Aviation Authority to develop rules which we must abide by. From this secondary legislation, which takes a lot of effort to change, they have also issued aeronautical notices, which they update regularly and contain much more detailed information about how operators and pilots must act on a day-to-day basis. We will look at those after the statutory instrument. You will find the statutory instrument below this video, and we invite you to download it. The statutory instrument starts by giving us a string of definitions. So if you ever want to check out the legal definition of some of the terms in the document, this is where you can go. Next, it talks about applicability, telling us that it applies to all small unmanned aircraft under 150 kilograms. Although it then lists one exception. The statutory instrument does not cover drones less than 1 kilogram, provided that the drone does not have any substantial parts. This has led to a misconception that there are no rules for drones less than 1 kilogram, and this is not the case. Drones like the DJI Mavic are less than 1 kilogram, but they clearly have substantial parts, although you could argue this one if you wanted to. Either way, for this exemption to apply, you also have to remain below 15 meters or 50 feet, and you must fly in a manner that doesn't cause any harm to people or property. This exception was designed so that everyone can enjoy flying light drones in their back garden or wherever they want to fly, and at the time it was written you couldn't get commercial drones less than 1 kilogram. If you want to go above 50 feet or 15 meters, then you should treat your drone as if it's between 1 and 4 kilograms and follow those rules, which we're going to look at shortly. Section 7.1 tells us that we should register our drone, but we will discuss this a little bit further on in more depth. Section 7.2 tells us that we shall not permit our drones to be operated so as to cause a hazard to any other aircraft, in the vicinity of aircraft manoeuvring in an aerodrome traffic circuit, or in a negligent or reckless manner so as to endanger life or cause damage to the property of others. It also tells us to give way to manned aircraft, which seems fair because they're going to find it hard to give way to us. Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific then. The following rules are for all drones from 1 kilogram to 25 kilograms, or for drones less than 1 kilogram if you want to fly them above 50 feet or they have any substantial parts. There are certain types of airspace that we can't fly in unless we are qualified drone pilots, and we will look at how to do that later in Aeronautical Notice U02. These airspaces that we need to avoid are called prohibited airspace, restricted airspace, and controlled airspace. Now, the obvious question is, how do I know what airspace I'm in? Well, we've made that really simple for you. Just check out the airspace tab on our website. We've designed an interactive airspace map designed to be user-friendly and simple. Just click or search for where you want to fly and it'll tell you what type of airspace it is, as well as lots of other useful information. There are also some exemptions which allow everyone to fly in controlled airspace. These are detailed in Aeronautical Notice U04, and we're going to look at those in a subsequent video. When you are in uncontrolled airspace, you will still need to keep at least 5 kilometers from airfields like Newcastle and Wicklow and Clonbelogue in the Midlands. The exception is if you get permission from the airfield, which they are likely to give you, especially if you're a trained pilot. Again, check out the interactive airspace map on our website to find where these airfields are and to get their contact details. So, no matter where we are operating, we must stay 30 meters from people, boats, cars and buildings which are not under our control. This translates as we have to stay away unless we get their permission. So you can't fly your drone up to someone or over crowds, but if you're flying with your friends, they're happy to let you fly close to them, then that's fine. Just remember to keep it safe. This distance is one of the lowest published by a national aviation authority anywhere in the world. And just because it's the legal limit, it's certainly not a target. A lot of people would be very intimidated by a drone this close. So please respect that and do everything you can to keep the public happy and feeling safe. A common misconception is that if you increase your altitude, well then you can fly closer to people. Now this is not the case. It's 30 meters laterally. So imagine a cylindrical column extending vertically. If there is a gathering of 12 or more people, then this 30 meters increases to 120 meters, again laterally. This rule was designed for outdoor concerts or events like the National Ploughing Match, as the risk, should a failure occur on the aircraft, is much higher. Again, an exemption applies if those people are deemed to be under your control. We have to keep the drone within 300 meters of the pilot and always within unaided visual line of sight. This means you can wear glasses but not use binoculars. It is rare that you will need to fly so far, but again, take extra caution. The real risk here is that it gets difficult to know what you're flying over, and also, should a helicopter take off from a field, it could be very difficult to avoid it. The maximum height that we can fly above the ground or water is 400 feet or 120 meters. The reason for this is that manned aviation extends down as far as 500 meters. This leaves a 100-foot buffer. This is a very important rule, as manned aircraft can sneak up pretty fast, and our drones usually don't descend very fast. Both myself and Usheen have nearly hit drones which were flying too high when we were flying fast military aircraft. The rule is 400 feet or 120 meters above the position where the drone is flying. So if you take off from the top of a mountain and climb to 400 feet or 120 meters, that's fine. But if you move the drone away from the top of the mountain, then you need to descend with the slope of the hill. Remember, your telemetry is unlikely to have this above ground information. It is likely to only tell you the height above the takeoff location, so exercise your superior airmanship here. Finally in our list, we can't drop anything from our drones without special permission. So no package delivery or parachuting your pets into your neighbours' gardens just yet. You may have seen on TV that I completed Ireland's first drone package delivery in January 2017 with an amazing young girl, Belmore. To drop the medical supplies to the boat, we had to get a special permission from the Irish Aviation Authority. As with most things in life, there are exceptions to every rule. To act outside any of these rules, pilots need to complete 2 days of ground school training and a flight test. This allows you to fly in any airspace and get specific exemptions if required. We'll talk more about this when we discuss Aeronautical Notice U02. As such, if you follow the above rules, no further permissions, certificates, insurance or training is required, although we strongly recommend that you consider an insurance policy if you're going to operate a drone in public. We're also a big believer in training, but the most important thing first is to follow the rules which we've just discussed. If your drone is between 4 kilograms and 25 kilograms, training and certification is mandatory. The majority of pilots who want to start a commercial operation will complete the same training regardless of the weight of their aircraft, as it gives them an edge and it's a logical step towards running a professional operation. But again, it's only mandatory if you're above 4 kilograms or you want to operate in restricted airspace, controlled airspace outside of the exemptions, which we're going to discuss later. If your aircraft is greater than 25 kilograms, a special permission is required, and you can apply directly to the Irish Aviation Authority for more information if that's your intention. In all cases, if you're taking off or landing from private property, you need to get the landowner's permission. Now, there is no rule which says you can't fly over someone's property, like their field, for example. But remember, you have to stay away from people and buildings, and just because it's legal does not mean that it's sensible. We need to respect people's privacy, and also endeavour to keep the reputation of drone pilots intact. What we do with our aircraft is going to affect the whole community. In summary, stay below 400 feet or 120 metres, no further than 300 metres, no closer than 30 metres from people, buildings, cars, 120 metres from gatherings of 12 people or more, outside of restricted, prohibited and controlled airspace, and at least 5 kilometres from airfields in uncontrolled airspace. Most importantly, fly safe and have fun.